You had a chance to chat with Utah Hockey Club GM Bill Armstrong on your latest edition of Frankly Speaking. You can find the podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. We're going to run it here on the YouTube in a couple of hours as well. But you asked him about taking the bat off his shoulder. Let's take a sneak peek.
Will you be in a position where you can maybe take the bat off your shoulder and swing a bit this year at the deadline?
Yeah, we're always going to look at that. I think that's another good question because teams can't figure out whether we're buying or selling, and our players will work that out for us as we move down the stretch here, pushing for a playoff spot. But we have the assets to swing, and if it's the right deal with the right timeline, with the right age, we're definitely going to try and become a championship organization and acquire championship players. So that for us is something we're going to take a swing all the time and take a look at. Just the same as things we did at the draft. We're going to again try and do that at the trade deadline. We'll see what's available, and if there's anything that makes our club better, we're going to certainly take a look at it.
$11 million, $11.6 million in current cap space, which could accrue to well north of $20 million by the deadline. You look at their draft picks. Every single one of their picks for the first 6 rounds this year. Next year, they got a couple extra second rounders, an extra third. We talked when the change happened from Arizona to Utah. I was like, man, what kind of a GM could Bill Armstrong be now that the shackles are kind of off for him? And we saw it, as he kind of alluded to, with the Sergachev deal in the summer. Do you think they're really serious about maybe doing something like that again?
Yeah, I do think they are. And I'll tell you this, Bill Armstrong is not a very popular GM amongst his peers. And the reason for that, we actually talked about it on the pod, is because he calls and he asks about top end players. And a lot of times the conversations are super short, and sometimes he even gets hung up on, I bet, where it's like, yeah, why are you calling about that guy? But that Sergachev deal is a great example, because maybe about 6 months before it ever even materialized at the draft, he had called and asked Tampa Bay about Sergachev, and months later he gets a call back saying, hey, are you still interested? And if so, here's what we might be looking at. And you see a deal start to come together. I know for certain that Bill Armstrong has been making those types of calls this season. And I wouldn't be shocked. Let's just connect a dot. What about one of the guys in Vancouver that we've been talking about all year long? Utah has the pieces to get something like that done, and they're ready to take a swing and potentially add a game-changing player. I don't think there's a team in the NHL that's better well-positioned for the future than Utah Hockey Club. Draft picks, prospects, cap space, and they have star players already in their fold. That's a pretty dangerous combination.
Yeah, and listen, I know we're not that far removed from Utah having to scrape the waiver wire just to put 6 NHL or close to NHL caliber defensemen in their lineup. But you mentioned John Marino's coming back. Sean Durzi is not that far away from coming back. Looking at that blue line, Sergachev, Marino. Once Durzi's healthy, there's 3. Mata's played well since he's come there. Kesselring's legit. Maverick Lamoureux could be healthy again by the end of the month here.
That's your 6.
There's your 6, and then you still have a Valimaki and an Ian Cole. If they wanted to do a deal with Vancouver, one of the hurdles we've talked about with other teams and that kind of mix is Vancouver doesn't want 2 first-round picks and a good prospect in this deal. They want help now. If Utah suddenly wants to dangle one of those defensemen, whether it's Marino, Durzi, or even someone like Kesselring, they could afford, now that they're healthy, to subtract a D-man off that roster to get scoring help.
And they've got other ones on the way, which is the scariest part. They've got so many prospects, they're actually not even able to sign them all, to the point where they're getting calls left and right being like, which guys are you keeping? And if not, how can we trade for the rights to some of these other guys? So they're in a great spot. And I think you look at this year, Marino made his season debut last night, and Durzi is only a few weeks away. That's plenty of runway for this team to make the playoffs, given what we've talked about, how mushy it is in the West. To step up and pass Calgary or Vancouver for that 8th seed, I think it's entirely doable.
2-7-1 in their last 10, but like you said, getting healthy, and that could lead to a turnaround for Utah, who are currently 6 points out of a playoff spot. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.